She's never it's more like so busy. It's a status. So busy.
Finder?
Oh, no, she gets lost.
Do you have her? Like, do you try them?
Yeah, she gets on. And then get how we go.
You try to take commerce?
Well, they're already at Carver, they're already at here. They're in the corner. Where the corner when it's named section, quick section.
Oh, that's still like.
Yeah, well, then there's the cross, across from the block, and then they're on sort of what 2 months.
And you have to walk back with them to get to the car.
I'm parked, well, I'm parked here, I would have to drive like that.
Okay, but you know. Thanks. Where did you live? It's gonna be a while. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, remind me. Oh, okay.
Or probably 2 weeks.
And then fluffy legs.
And cheers out.
So when my niece is and she's getting married, and well, it was a whole countdown while she was watching. Right, and so I'm like, you can see it, and I'm like, every time a good comment, I feel like it, I give a heart. And then it was like, we wish I was going to change it. And I was like, here we go. I will say one thing, the sunset is actually really if you like to love it, and then it's put balance and have it, I have not learned how to balance people. It's in the salsa. So, is it vegetable now? But Chipotle, it's like, a little goes a long way. And you think you're getting a little, and next thing you know, you're like, I think it's too much. I
I'll even speak relationships.
I'm gonna be in the middle of this talking about certificates. No.
There, that's my full point. They have my full attention.
Chips need to stay as a staple, just like that. Because I haven't done this also. Well, for me, I like it. With the chipotle, it's kind of smoky and dark.
Hello, welcome. Guys. This is the Hard Rock Cafe. This is where we rock and roll. So how are you guys doing this evening? Great. All right, well, I want to welcome you to tonight's DreamHour speaker series. I am your MC for tonight. My name is Aziza Salama. I am born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas. I am also an executive director for the Free Rides program, which is a local nonprofit. Born and raised here in San Antonio back in 2023, we became official. And what we do is we offer free rides home to people who've had too much to drink. So if you're at a bar and you've had too much to drink, you can call our dispatch line and we'll send you an Uber home free of charge. As simple as that. Because what many people don't know is, I want to say 2019, 2020, we were ranked top 4 in the nation in deaths per capita. We may not be the biggest city, but we have a lot of deaths coming out of our city because of drunk driving. So me and my team, we got together, we created this grassroots movement, and we worked tirelessly to make sure that we stop drinking and driving. So please check out our website, www.freeridesprogram.org. We are homegrown. We're always looking for volunteers, donations, and the such things that all nonprofits need. But a little bit about DreamWeek. How many of you have been to DreamWeek before, or is this your first time? Let's say, is this your first time? Raise your hand. Yeah. At any kind of DreamWeek event. Okay. No, she knows about DreamWeek. Awesome. So tonight we have some amazing speakers. I've been a partner myself with DreamWeek. I want to say this is going to be my 9th year collaborating with DreamWeek. On average, I usually host 2 to 3 events every year. This year I decided just to have one big production. It was a lot of fun. So if you guys heard about our event, we had Hip Hop Revelations this past weekend at Tank's Pizza, and we did a showcase of all the local artists here in San Antonio. We had some talking heads, some radio OGs of San Antonio. We had a panel. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of dancing. There was a lot of food. So definitely check us out, because here at Free Rides, we always want to do fun stuff for the community, but we also want to be sure that we're safe. So tonight we have some great speakers, and I'm going to get straight to that. You want to be careful with this mic, because me and this mic were friends last night. We're going to start off real quickly with Ms. Cassandra Parker-Nowicki. She said not Lewinsky, not none of those things. Make sure it's right. He serves as executive director for the Carver Community Cultural Center. Multi-Carver's team, she started her career at the Majestic and the Empire Theaters here in San Antonio, where she worked for 8 years before moving to Baltimore, Maryland, to join the management team responsible for renovating and reopening the historic Franz Marek Performing Arts Center. Cassandra believes strongly in the power and the possibilities that exist within the arts to transform and heal individuals, I believe that too, and communities as well, as a way to not only celebrate which binds us together, but also in ways which each of us are unique. So let me get a round of applause, please.
Thank you for the introductions, and also for the work you do. It's important. Thank you so much. Good evening. How's everyone doing? Gearing up for our Winter Wonderland this weekend. I want to thank DreamWeek and Community First Health Plans for inviting me to be here this evening. I am just really honored to be here with you and to have some time to share a little bit of my story. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you this evening, I want to spend some time telling you a little bit about my personal story that led me to where I am now, serving as Executive Director of the Carver Community Cultural Center. And so often when I am asked to talk about what kind of led me down this path as an arts administrator, where I usually start the story is in high school as a theater kid. But if I'm being true to myself and to you, it really started about a decade before that as a 4-year-old in a tiny bathroom in a duplex on Woodbury, where my first theater was the bathtub. And a family of, I'm really about to date myself, a family of Weeble Wobbles and a Raggedy Ann doll were my audience. And Mr. Bubbles was my inspiration. So, as a 4-year-old, I've always loved to take a bath. And so at bath time every night, my mother would run my bath water while I went about gathering my toys and my books. And I was always a little like in my whatever beverage I wanted to take with me, because I always believed in the power of like a good candlelit bath, even at 4 years old. And once my mother would close the door, I would not only immerse myself into the warm water, but I would immerse myself into a world of my imagination. And I would create these epic plays. And I mean epic dramas, epic comedies, romances, you name it. They had huge casts, they had twists and turns, they had complicated plot lines, where not only was I writing the script for every character, but I was portraying every character. And it would oftentimes, my parents were very used to this, but sometimes we would have visitors that would, be speaking with my parents while I was taking my bath, and they would raise an eyebrow, and all of a sudden, from beyond the door, they would hear an adult male voice coming from the bathtub. And my mother's like, that's okay, she's just putting on one of her plays. So that is really, if I'm being honest, where my love for theater began. But it wasn't just there. Whenever we would have family parties or we would get invited to people's houses for parties, I loved, of course, to play with my cousins or run around with the kids my age. But truth be told, what I love to do most and where you would most often find me is in some corner of the room where I had cornered the oldest person in the room, or who I thought to be the oldest person in the room, and was asking them a whole bunch of questions. I wanted to know who they were. I wanted to know where they were from. I wanted to know how they met their spouse and why they decided to marry them. I wanted to know what their favorite foods were, what their favorite colors were, if they had pets. I just wanted to know their story. And truth be told, that's what it was always about, is I was in love with the story. And though I didn't understand at that age in particular the true power of story, I certainly understood that it was fascinating and that it was important that we share stories. So now we can fast forward to 10 years at Robert E. Lee High School here in San Antonio. I was the quintessential theater kid. I lived in that theater. Tammy Frazier was my very first theater teacher, and we were her very first class. She came straight out of college to Lee, and my freshman year was her first year teaching. And over the 4 years that I spent at Lee, in that little theater, on that stage, behind the scenes, in front of the house, and all of the ways that I participated, I really fell in love with the art form. And yes, it started because I loved to perform. I loved the feeling of being able to step into somebody else's shoes, to tell their story in a way that was meaningful to me and to the audience, for an opportunity to explore different worlds, different histories, different perspectives, different ways of navigating the world. Again, even at that age, I didn't have all of the language for what was going on, but I knew that it was meaningful, and I knew that it was impactful. It certainly had been for me up to that point, but I also had a sense that it was really impactful to everyone who was participating, but also to everyone who was having those experiences as a patron. I understood that what we were doing on that stage was shaping who I was as an individual. And I'll often say now that my ability an opportunity to participate in theater and to participate in the arts. I mean, I grew up in a household too where music played all of the time. I went to museums, not all of the time, but I had opportunities to do it. I saw the ballet as a 6-year-old for the first time. I went to opera. All of these experiences were really shaping me in ways that at those times I didn't understand. But what I can tell you today, standing here, is that my ability to have access to be both a patron and a participant in the arts has absolutely shaped everything about the way that I navigate the world on both a professional and a personal level. It informs who I am as a mother, who I am as a wife, who I am as a daughter, who I am as a neighbor and a sister and a colleague and a coworker. It informs who I am as a global citizen. We often hear how the arts help build empathy, they help build compassion, all of the other obvious things. It helps us to be creative and innovative and to think outside the box. All of those things are so very true in my own personal experience, and were just reaffirmed or affirmed along the way. I was very fortunate that I had a family that was supportive and understanding. Now again, remember, they didn't have much of a choice. I was doing like full-blown theatrical productions in the bathtub before. So I had a very supportive family, and after graduating high school, went to Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas, where I received my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater. Again, I started down that journey because I loved to perform. I loved to be on stage. But what happened over the course of my 4 years at Southwestern is I really started to understand and appreciate the larger ecosystem that creates these types of opportunities. So being the liberal arts institution that it is, not only did I perform, but I had opportunities to direct. I designed lights and sound, I built sets, I ran the box office, I ran the front of house. I did the advertising, I did all of the things that helped to make the productions possible. And I loved all of it. And what I started to realize was that really I was just in love with the art form in general. And that while I loved being on stage, what I really wanted to do was to be part of the larger ecosystem of making sure that other people had the same opportunity that I had to have these experiences, whether it's theater or dance or music or literary arts, whatever their particular craft or art form was. I wanted to be a part of their story. So I graduated from Southwestern and was very fortunate that pretty much out of college that I got a job at the Majestic and Empire Theaters. Now, of course, I had been to the Majestic. It was the first place I'd ever actually seen a musical theater piece. Again, theater kid, but not so much musical theater. And again, fell in love with that ability to capture an audience and take them on this journey with you. I loved my time at the Majestic. I loved experiencing all of the amazing artists and concerts and events, all of the people, the tens, hundreds of thousands of people that go through those doors still, and all of the people that I had an opportunity to work with. But at the end of the day, it always came back to what I really was. So I was there for 8 years, and then had an opportunity to move to Baltimore, Maryland, for a few years to help open a theater up there that was very similar to the Majestic Theater. And had a wonderful experience there for 3 years, and then found out I was expecting my daughter and decided I want to come home to San Antonio so we can be with our family. And really fortunate that I could spend some time with her at home, and she was very, very, very young. But just about the time that I was like, hey, it's time for her to get out of the world and for me to go back into the world, I saw a job listing for the Carver. So I'm going to backtrack for a second. When I was at Southwestern, again, dating myself a little bit, The field of arts administration was not one that was really well talked about. There weren't a lot of programs. There certainly wasn't anything at the undergraduate level, maybe a few things at the graduate level, but again, not a field that people were really talking about. You kind of specialized, you were tech, you were an actor, maybe you were a playwright, that was kind of it. But Southwestern, in my sophomore year, had its very first arts administration class, and I took that class. And as our culminating project, we had to create our dream arts organization from top to bottom. We had to write the synopsis and the description of it. We had to program it. We had to build out a marketing plan. We had to create a budget. We had to write job descriptions, staff it, all of these things and what it would take to run an organization that we dreamed about working someday. Well, my brother happened to work at the Carver Community Cultural Center at that time. And I was familiar with the Carver through his stories, but also having gone to events at the Carver in high school as well. So the Carver was kind of already deeply woven into the fabric of my personal story. So I based my project off of Carver. I recently found that paper and realized basically I changed the name and a little bit of the programming, but it was kind of like right out of the Carver's website. I don't even know if they have a website. And so I tell people when I was hired to join the Carver team, when I say that that is a dream come true, it is truly a dream come true. The Carver Cultural Center was the organization that I imagined. And what I admired so deeply about the work that the Carver was doing at that time and throughout its history is that it was very much a place for the community, by the community. And it was a holder of the stories of the community. And again, stories resonated so deeply with me. So I fortunately was brought onto the team at the Carver under the leadership at that time of Yanni Blanchette, and have been with the Carver now for 17 years. And couldn't be happier. It is such an amazing organization. For those of you that are not familiar with the Carver, we talked about it being a multicultural, multidisciplinary performing and visual arts center. It's very much rooted in its history and connection to San Antonio's Black community. And for those of you that have not visited the Carver or are not as familiar with the history, its origin story dates back over 100 years. It is really humbling to be part of such a historic, iconic institution that has been serving its community for over a century. We that are there now are merely just students of the Carver. There is a long list, a long lineage of people that have been central to the Carver's continued success, and some of them are sitting in this room right now. We have 2 former board members and just still supporters, many supporters in the room. But that's the beautiful thing about an institution such as this. As I said, it really is for the community, by the community. The Carver's origin story starts in a time when the city of San Antonio, and really the country, was still segregated. And for those of you that come to events at the Carver now, when you walk into our lobby, that beautiful lobby and art gallery was the original library for San Antonio's Black community when it was still segregated. It was not only a place where community members could come to get library services, but it really was a place where the community gathered together. For those of you that have attended performances in our theater, the theater was built at the same time as the library. That building is celebrating 95 years, but it was built after the original building on that property where the library services started. But the stage where we still have performances to this day house such legendary artists as Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, and Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, and all of their contemporaries throughout the ages. At the time that they first were performing at the Carver, you have to think back to where we were as a society. And a lot of the artists that came to perform there came because it was one of the few places in San Antonio where Black artists could perform. Or it was one of the few places in San Antonio where Black artists could perform for Black audiences. And so that is the rich history that is held within those walls, the rich stories that are held within those walls. Today, thankfully, things have changed. The Carver is still honoring its history, still amplifying and lifting up the stories of not only our Black community here in San Antonio, but around the globe. But it is also a place that recognizes the power of the arts to, through story, to help us understand other ways of living. We represent on our stages artists from different cultures, from art forms that maybe are not as widely represented in San Antonio. It has always been a place that has been about honoring the stories of everyone in our community told in their own authentic voices in a way that is meaningful and true to them. And that is such a powerful, powerful gift for the community. And I'm so honored to be able to be part of the team that is currently trusted to be stewards of this institution. Recently someone asked me if I had to pick one moment in time, one moment in my history at the Carver that really defined why I continue to do the work that I do, what would that be? And it would be hard. Again, I've been there 17 years. The Carver is an extremely active cultural institution. We're active over 300 days of the year. We see tens of thousands of people throughout the year. We not only have performances, we have classes, we have master classes and workshops. The community holds their own events at the Carver. There's a lot of activity, so it's hard to pick one. But there is one moment that for me was deeply, deeply gratifying. And it was a few years ago. We had an opportunity to bring Cleo Parker Robinson Dance to the Carver. They've been there many times. It's an extraordinary Black dance company that celebrated their 40th year a few years ago. And we held a master class, and we took some of the dancers over to a dance studio. And there was a young man who, at the time, was 10 years old. And he participated in this master class, and he was so excited. First time he had ever seen another Black male dancer, professional dancer. So he came to the performance. We invited him and his family to come see the performance. And he came up to me afterwards with tears in his eyes and said, "Thank you. Thank you for showing me that there is a place for me in this world that he had dedicated so much of his time to." And that until that moment, he did not know that there were people that looked like him, living and thriving and surviving as professional dancers. This young man has gone on to participate in our dance intensive. He's gone on to be invited to participate in really exclusive dance residencies throughout the country, and he absolutely will be back at the Carver stage one day performing as a principal dancer of a dance company. And that is just one of hundreds of stories I can tell you about the importance of having your story reflected back to you, why representation matters, and why it's important that we continue to tell our stories. So I know I need to wrap up. I just have 3 things I want to say to you. One, if you've never experienced the Carver, please come visit us, come see a show, take a class. Just come hang out with me in my office, I'll give you a tour. If you have a child in your life who likes to tell stories, listen to them. Let them live in the world of their imagination. We need beautiful dreamers right now more than ever to envision a world that we all want to live in. And the last thing I would say is tell your story. It is so important that we continue to share our story. I promise you, someone wants to hear it. And I want to thank you for letting me share a little bit of my story with you this evening.
Questions.
So does anybody have questions? Yes, ma'am.
Representation matters. So I have two questions for you. One, when you were that 4-year-old girl in front of your bathtub, who was representing for you? Who made you see yourself as you today? And then the second question is, because you do have this illustrious position at the Carver, who is your dream person? Who would you like to see at the Carver right now?
Yes. Okay, so the first question was about representation, and as I said, representation matters. So who did I see myself reflected in? And I would have to say, I'm glad you asked that, because as a biracial child, representation was tricky for me, right? Like I didn't often see my full self represented, but what I would say is that I saw myself represented in the community of my community, of my family. I saw myself reflected back in my elders and those people that I would corner in the room, because I felt that they had something that I could connect to. And I can tell you, I was never disappointed. Like I was always enthralled with whatever they shared, no matter how extraordinary or ordinary it seemed. And what that did for me was to help me really develop a very strong sense of self. So when I walked into spaces that I did not see myself fully represented in, I was able to navigate that with a kind of self-assuredness that was crucial, because oftentimes I was placed in positions where I was like, I kind of had to choose which part of my identity I wanted to represent in that space. So having the love and the guidance of my very diverse community and family really helped shape that for me. And then the second question was, who would I most want to see at the Carver? Oh my gosh, that's hard. If money and budget and reality were no like limit, Prince.
Okay.
The one regret I have now is I never saw Prince perform live. But I would say I would really love to see someone like John Legend, who arguably we can't afford John Legend, and that would sell out in like 2.5 seconds. But to see him in a space that is so just historic, and know that all of the voices that and the artists that were on that stage before him would be amazing. I'd actually like to go back in time and see Billie Holiday.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
So like positive and being just that there is people
So the question was that there is a rumor that it was not a rumor. In the Majestic, there is a wall where people sign their name. So there's actually two things. So one, if you ever have an opportunity to take a backstage tour at the Majestic, I would recommend you do, because every artist that goes through there, or every show, actually creates like a mini mural and signs their name, or sometimes they paint posters. It's really a pretty magnificent like legacy of who all's been there. But there is also a location so when you're in the Majestic looking at the proscenium up above, the statue that's up there, it's very complicated to get to, but actually a lot of people have gone up there and they sign, I won't tell you where on the statue, but they sign their names up there as well. Any other questions?
So very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we get another round of applause, please? We appreciate that so very much. So we're gonna go ahead and move on. Let's see, our next speaker tonight. Our next speaker tonight is a part of the nonprofit world as well. And I know that as the speaker series has been going on for the past couple of days, we've been seeing a lot of nonprofit work here in San Antonio. And I appreciate that. I mean, yes, I have a nonprofit, so of course I'm gonna appreciate that. But Something that I've learned from our community is that we really love each other and we try to do the best that we can in the nonprofit world. So, I'm grateful for the nonprofits here. Our next speaker tonight is going to be Mr. Luis Lopez. He serves as president and CEO of the YMCA for Greater San Antonio, bringing more than 25 years of YMCA experience in making history as the organization's first CEO of color in its 148-year legacy. Let's give him a round of applause. Important ardent visionary leader and is deeply committed to advancing diversity, equality, inclusion, and by expanding access to programs, elevating leaders of color, and fostering inclusive pathways for growth within the YMCA. Through strong community partnerships and collaboration, has helped strengthen and empower individuals and families across the Greater San Antonio.
Thank you. All right, we have about 25 slides, so buckle up, order some food. I'm just kidding, but I do want to make sure that I did my timer so that I know how much time I have. But good evening, my name is Luis Lopez, and I serve as the president and CEO for the YMCA of Greater San Antonio. I've been with the Y for over 26 years. I've been with the YMCA of Greater San Antonio back in this role for the last 3 years. I joined our Y in the end of 2022, and I'm finishing my third year as my first CEO role. And much like you heard from my colleague here, my dream job as well. And an exciting time for our Y. This year, we are celebrating our 150th year in San Antonio. So certainly the San Antonio community for 150 years. And I say that and I want to highlight some of our work here because as I was thinking about the presentation and what I want to share with you, the theme being Revelations, to me that means a lot of things, but what it means to me is really our history and our legacy and what we do with it. And I want to thank DreamWeek San Antonio for allowing me to come and share some of my revelations. I want to thank Community First, our friends there, for sponsoring this great series. And I want to thank you for being here. So we will start with this poll, and I love this video. And again, this helps me to really share what 150 years of San Antonio is like. And so looking at all of those pictures, and since 1876, we've been in this community, serving differently, but serving nonetheless. And we've seen so many different eras. And as was thinking about what I wanted to share in my revelations, I've thought about things that if I was in your seat or things that I'm still interested in, what would be something that I might want to? And so I tried to tailor this in thinking about first some things, and I also want to preface this by saying these are things from my experience, lived and learned. So a lot of these are going to be Luisms. So as you see it, some you'll resonate with, some you may say, okay, that's crazy, but I hope you appreciate it. And I wanted to start by saying, and as I thought about this and put slides together, I kept coming back to saying, okay, now that I know that, what am I supposed to do differently? So I thought, well, let's lead with that. Right? Revelation is not just what we learn, but how we choose to show up once we know. So we'll level set. Let's say, what is a revelation? And I went to the definition and say a surprisingly and previously unknown fact, one that you learned in a dramatic way. And then I thought about, well, what is DreamWeek really asking us to do? I think it's asking us to reflect honestly. And then I thought, well, what is the community asking from us? And what I've gathered in my 26 years is they want us to show up consistently. They want us to show up and be there and adapt, but they want us to do it consistently. These bullets are straight from our DreamWeek on what their mission and what they want to achieve, and hopefully we accomplish some of those in our next 18 minutes. So we got to start off with level setting. We got to start off with my personal revelation. And when I think about that, I think about who I am. And to the left here, these are some cool things that I've had a chance to do, and I love that. And the why is a major part of who I am. To the right, This is my family, a young family, and two of them are sitting up here in the front, my wife and my daughter here. And as you can tell, this was quite some time ago, but it's still one of my favorite pictures, not just because I had on my hair and I didn't have white on my beard at the time, but it reminds me of when I was early in my career. And at that time, my career was really what drove me, and there were some perspective things that I hadn't quite realized yet, and there were some trade-offs that I didn't quite understand at the time. So I think when I think about my personal reflection, it comes out of who I am. I did grow up in the south side of San Antonio. I was the first to graduate high school in my family. I was the first to graduate college. I was a later in life student. I started in the Y in 1999. And I am our first CEO of color. 148 years in San Antonio. It amazes me, and I am honored to have the distinction, but it will be important that I'm not the last one. But when I look at the things on the right, I learned that I'm committed to serving others. My family and my faith are what anchors me. I've got 3 children, 3 grandchildren. And when I think about this, the why plays a major part of who I am, but it is not who I am. It is what I do. And this is who I am. So I think when I try to share some things that I've learned or some share things that I believe are important, I think it's important with helping people understand that this is still my job that pays me and allows me to do a lot of things and serve people, but it is not just about who I am. And I think that's going to be something that as we go through our next revelations, that I wanted to start by sharing. So I listed some things, again, as I've learned, as I hope that I could share with you on things that I've learned. And the first thing I thought about, well, God, I mean, how is it leading in today's world? Because it's hard and it's different. And especially if you're a young leader or a leader of color or a female leader, there are some things that we have to learn to navigate through. And these are some things that I have found are important to me. Clarity of identity. I realized I had to figure out right away, who am I going to be? And more importantly, what am I not going? Emotional intelligence. I think, and I share this a lot where I get to share with other young leaders, is, in my opinion, emotional intelligence is probably the most important part of your career and professional and personal development, because it's relationship based. And when we can't understand what we're at personally and professionally, I think it's going to be very, very challenging for us to move forward in any situation. Strategic courage. I think we have to know when to speak and not to be afraid to speak. Relationship building, I think, is just as important. And I'm going to run through or spend a little bit more time on these than others, but mastery of the system without becoming it. So, when I think about that, I think about everything that we're in is about systems, right? And I think we get frustrated sometimes and say, God, it feels like, how do I understand it? Or why does this always happen? Well, that's not going to change. I think what we have to understand are what are the rules of that system and how can we work within those and change them systemically when we have an opportunity to. But this is one that, again, in my experience, I have found frustration comes out of this without us really understanding what that means. Resilience without being a martyr. And what I mean by that is, and I was guilty of this as well, is feeling like I had to do everything for everyone today. And this is a long game. I've done this for 26 years and I hope I can do this for another 10 or so. But here is the reality is you can only give so much. And when we are gone, someone else is going to fulfill your role. And for those folks, and when I get to share with some of my personal staff in our YMCA, I'm now telling everyone, I want you to take all of your vacation time. When I remember back at a time, I would never take all my vacation time. Because I felt like I had to always be at work and I couldn't leave because everyone relied on me. Well, that's not a sustainable approach. And we have to be able to take care of ourselves and the people we care about if we truly want to be in this for the long game. Commitment to lifting up others. The next slide is more about this because here's where I believe the good stuff lies. Here's where I believe we start making a true difference is when we work with one another and as we grow, we lift up others, right? As we have an opportunity to do better, we look at people behind us and next to us and we figure out how do we all rise at the same time? Because it is not about if I get a slice of the pie, you don't get a slice of the pie. We can all have a slice of the pie, but I don't think we do this well enough. as a culture, as our communities of color. I don't think we do enough of this where we say, as I'm getting better, I need to make sure that you're getting better. And down here, this is just something that, I believe that we don't have to choose between excellence and authenticity. Our power comes from us showing up fully, being boldly and staying rooted in who we are. So the next one, really about lifting up others. Here is what I have learned, what I have seen, what I truly believe is when we thrive and when we don't, is seeing potential in people that are not quite there. How do we identify folks that can move forward without having that perfection? Because that is an impossibility, not reality. There are a lot of great people in our communities around us that have that potential and that are going to be here once we are gone. Create access, not just advice. And what I mean by that is we have to help make sure that we are bringing people along. We have to make sure that we are not just here sharing with you what I believe, but that I actually not only become your supporter, but I try to find open doors for you as well. Sharing power, not just praise, investing time, not just resources. And that's the hardest part, I think, of all of this, because it takes time. And time is our most valuable resource, right? You cannot replace time. There are trade-offs that we always do, but we cannot replace the amount of time that we choose to invest. Giving back, even when it's inconvenient. Making room at the table. We've heard, everyone has heard this, right, about having a seat at the table. Well, here's the deal. If the table's not big enough, we need to get a bigger table. We have to do that. We have to take ownership of that. And then modeling what you want to see. And here's what I believe in, where it is difficult for us to go out and share all of these things that we believe, like what we've seen, or that we ultimately know are right, if we don't actually model it. It's important for me to, in front of my staff, say, well, I can't tell you that I want you to take all the time for your personal healing or your personal mental time if I don't do it and if I don't model it. So I need to make sure that's something that I am doing as well. And at the bottom here, we lift up others, we don't lose ground. Right? This is not a if thing. This is an and. We can all grow and we can all be successful. We can build it and we can do this together. So how do we show up, and what does that really mean? Well, I think we need to show up consistently. We can't choose a win, and it can't be easy. I think we need to show up with humility. I think we need to show up courageously. I think we need to show up with accountability. And I put down here, leadership is not just about ability, it's about responsibility. We get roles and positions because of things that we did well. That's not why you stay there. We have to continue to grow, and being a leader does not mean that you have a title in your name that says manager or supervisor or any of those things. And not everyone is meant to do that, but we all have that inside of us if we choose to. Show up for the long term. This is a movement. This isn't today. This is not just about DreamWeek. This is a time where we recognize it and we reflect on it and we share all of these great ideas, but this is a movement that we have to commit to every day. And showing up for each other. Revelation is not the end of the journey, it's the moment of responsibility begins. So I want to play a quick video for you because I think this was a great video. I don't know if it's going to work. Can someone hit play? Oh, hold on. Oh, no. There we go. Can you hit the little play arrow? Where's there? What's there?
In the middle of the screen.
It's going. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sorry, I just need some tissue.
Still for a while?
No, it should have already started.
It
It should be embedded in there. Well,
we can give you a minute.
okay, let me see if I can get it.
All right. But you want to know through different people and yeah. Fine, it's good to see you. Yes, sir. Good to see you. Thank you. Thanks for I saw them, but I didn't realize, I didn't understand. Next to the stuff, it's a pleasure to follow European.
Hey, there's seats up there.
They want to stand, so I'm sitting at school all day.
You have some, you find something to
I think that's some pictures already.
yeah. Oh, thank you for being here. We can appreciate it.
This is my day.
Thank you for being here.
Show me.
Which way your life shall go. Whether you have a common, a solid, now sounds blueprint. And I want to suggest sounds of a section D in your life blueprint. Now, what in your life is blueprint D. As ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have the basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it would be set out to do it, and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. Well, is it by sign that you win or you fail? Be the best of whatever you are. Must be a commitment to the eternal principle. Okay.
So if you have a chance, go back to it and look at the video. And I love that video because what it talks about, to me, the way I understand it is we need to be that blueprint for one another. And as we find success and as we grow, we should be that blueprint. There should be no question where if you ask me what are the things that I found helped me in my success, that I should sit down with you and share every one of the things that I found success in. And some things that I found set me back. And some things that I realized that were trade-offs so that you don't make the same mistakes. And I love, it's hard to not have every speech, right, that Dr. King shares, but I love the fact that we're here during this week and we're talking about what DreamWeek San Antonio means for us and what it means to honor Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy. And at the core of it, it's about reflection and how that leads to action. And the same with our why, and I think the shared reflection as our city becomes stronger and we truly see one another and when we work together. So I'm not going to read all of this to you, but this is something, without me sharing my political views or what side I lean more towards, I will share with you that our landscape is scary and there is a lot of uncertainty and people are scared and we have young staff, we have young kids, and it is it is a mess, right? There's some things that we don't know. And how do we answer it? How do we respond? And this is something that, as an organization, we felt was important for us to come out and share with our staff, with our families, and with everyone that we care about, to say that our organization for 150 years has always been here for all, for everyone. That doesn't change. Although we are governed where we have to no longer say certain words, it doesn't mean that we can't continue to say that regardless of what words we use, we can still show up every day for the people that are relying on us, and we will continue to adapt and evolve as generational needs evolve, as community needs evolve, and this will continue to remain our commitment. This is something that we put together and we put out. I thought this was appropriate for me to share with you today. So why does this matter? When we're thinking about all of DreamWeek, hearing people's different testimonies, why does all of this matter? Well, San Antonio is a rich culture, resilience, history, but we face our own challenges. We know that, we see that. DreamWeek asks us to confront those honestly. I think the Y responds by showing up daily with consistency, compassion, and commitment. Well, what's the revelation? What are the things that I think about when I think about those two? Well, I don't think change starts with policy or programs, and I think they're all good intentions, and you'll hear a lot about those, and people are doing good work. I don't think that's where it starts. Where I think it starts is when people are choosing to show up for one another and making a commitment to say, we are going to come with this collaborative spirit. We are going to figure out how we lift up one another, and we are going to make a commitment on how we choose to show up every day. So I do have one last video for you because I will say the words.
CA began to refuge for different men seeking a better life during his industrial revolution. Mission with a thoughts, spirit, mind, bucket.
Okay, we're not going to try that. But if you go to our website, we have a very cool video that talks about our history since since being established in 1876. In all of the different eras and all of the different times where people needed us and continue to need us. And what I love about our organization and what we continue to be committed to is that we may serve people differently than we did in 1876, but the one thing that has never changed is that we show up. And we're committed to showing up, and we adapt to the needs of the community, the ever-evolving changes within the community. And this is my final revelation to you. It's not just about what we learn or what we know as we grow, but how do we choose to show up once we know it. So thank you for letting me be here today with you. Yeah, any questions that anyone may have? Yes, sir.
So I currently live in the South Side, and I'm kind of wondering what part of the South Side you grew up in.
Yeah, I grew up off of Theo Malone. So Theo and Sassamora. That Theo Miller's right there was 35. My first. Yeah, well, on the opposite side of 35. So yeah. I was at Sassamora. But so all the way down where Theo ends at Theo and Sassamora, there was Theo Miller's there. That was my first paid job at 16. And that was only because the manager saw me playing basketball at the local park and said, hey, we have a company league, and if you want a job so you can play, yes. Thank you. Any other questions that I can answer? Yes, ma'am.
Question. Can you share with us one example of how you have shown from your final thought and your revelation?
Yeah, great question. So I think I'm faced with that every day. From our employees and our staff, when they look and rely on us and say, what do you think? This is where it's easy to say the right things, right? We all do that. You hear that a lot. And really, we've done a lot around how we invest in our people internally. And people have asked me, well, how do you measure that? And when do you find success? And I think the success for me is when there is a consistency between what we say and what we do. And that is where our employees will repeat that back to us. But I'll share with you how I believe it's important for me to show up every day. I believe that people are the most important part of our organization. Well, what does that mean? Well, for me, that means that we try to pay them not just what nonprofits pay, but we try to pay market rate. We try to make sure that you feel valued. That means that we do things, we go out of our way to make sure that we are going to appreciate and show high value and gratitude, and me go out of my way to go spend time at all of our different YMCAs and sit down with you once a year and say, hey, tell me what's going on, tell me what we can do, tell me what I can do better. When we look at our benefits and we say, okay, well, how do we make sure that people are filling it in their pockets? Well, what can we do as an organization to say, how do we make sure that we whatever we can, we do to take care of you? We started a mental health department. This started because of staff. This started right around COVID, where staff were asking for it. So now we have 10 licensed counselors on staff, and any of our staff can go see them at any point, at any time, in person, and there's no charge for them or have to go to their insurances. But for me, when I think about how am I supposed to show up for my organization, this is more internal side, on the people side. I've got to be willing to not just say the right things, but to make sure that we put it in action and listen and adapt and respond and make sure we ask again. Because I think the other part for me that can get me challenging is we assume and we prescribe a lot rather than asking and learning and then responding to what people need. All right, thank you very much. Oh, yes, sir.
Not really a question, but just an observation. And maybe you can, insight into, the landscape, thinking why it has changed. In terms of what the youth that were served 25, 30, 40 years ago, and what the existing realities are now for the youth and the community, and what the needs of the communities are, how the why the needs to face those dynamics and the kind of changes in the to keep facing a different profile, family and youth.
Yeah, good question. So the question was about how the Y is evolving or adapting programs to how youth changes, family changes, and I think where it's important, Mr. Scott, is for us to again continue to be curious and bring our families together and ask them, how do you want to be served, but also listen to them. And I'll give you a couple of things that we have done recently. We just partnered with Morgan's Wonderland, and we are redoing all of our onboarding of staff and how we learn and train staff. And this is going to be through Morgan, so that we can say when we truly want to serve families and children with all abilities. Well, the reality is we weren't equipped for that. Our staff weren't equipped for that. But there are experts in the community, and this is where I think we can admit that we don't have to be the experts in everything, where we can collaborate, and where organizations like us and Morgan's Wonderland, where independently we do pretty good work, but together we can serve so many more people. But that's one where we're realizing, how do we get other experts in the room to help us understand the needs of our communities, of our children, our youth, and our families, and then how do we work together to offer services and programs that we may not be offering right now. And then the other one, Mr. Scott, is mental health. I mean, we know that kids that fall into isolation, kids that don't have a place and an outlet, what that can result into, and we are doing a lot more of mental health counseling in our lives, which is not clinical with people from share.
Also, I got one last question. Because you guys have great benefits. Are you guys hiring? Let the people know on Facebook. Because that sounds like a wonderful place to work. And I really also appreciate when you spoke about collaborating with other organizations. Because that's something, being in the nonprofit field myself, I've learned that San Antonio is doing really good at collaborating with other organizations and not trying to carry the load themselves. So shout out to you for that, for saying it out loud, for addressing it, and also for all your revelations up there, because I took pictures and I'm posting on Facebook. So can we give them another round of applause, please? We're going to move on to our next speaker, Mr. Michael Reyes, who is the president and CEO of Opportunity Homes San Antonio, the city's largest provider of affordable housing and the largest public authority in the state of Texas. Former resident of the Alisana Bache courts, he leads with a deep understanding of how how stable housing creates pathways to opportunity, dignity, and long-term community well-being. Under his leadership, Opportunity Home is advancing in innovative partnerships and resident-centered solutions to strengthen neighborhoods across San Antonio. Thank you for everything you do. Because my mom was second, third generation. My family came from the Alzheimer's Bunch of Courts, so rock and roll for
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the invitation. Before I get started, I wanted to thank Mr. Cho himself, the founder of DreamWeek. Grace us with his presence. Thank you for being here. Also, my fellow speakers, I'm just in awe and humbled to be in your presence. These are great leaders, and I'm just impressed with their leadership and all they've done. I wanted to also thank my best friend, who I married many years ago, when I was here in Sonia, who's been my partner in crime, and we're in this incredible journey called parenthood. Trying to raise two civic-minded, compassionate, good human beings, and they happen to be here as well. My daughter Madeline and my son Logan. So I appreciate them skipping homework and not having to worry about going to bed early to be here. So thank you. And of course, I'm one of 5 siblings, and I have one of them here as well, my brother Abel. I'm grateful that he's here, and my colleagues as well from Opportunity Home, so thank you all for being here. With all that said, I wanted to start with a visual here, which really starts off the journey that I started off in. And it starts in that star right on this is a square block in the Alazan Courts, right between the Brazos and Colorado Street, in the oldest public housing community in San Antonio. That star on the far left, that is my great-grandmother, Angela Flores' home. Her daughter, who moved here, Hortensia Cortez, the one on the far right star here, she had 2 daughters, one of which, well, many children, but the 2 that live closest, the star on the top is my aunt, Rachel. And then, of course, mom, on the bottom star there at 413 Torreon, my mother, Amelia Reyes. She met my dad across the street of that home right there. He was hanging out with the guys. We went outside. He's like, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" She's like, "Back off. You look creepy." And he pursued her. And long story short, they ended up getting married and having children. 5 of us, right? And so I'm the 4th generation to have been born here in Alabama. And I always tell the story because to me this is my moral compass. This is what all this means to me. Mom broke the cycle. In the 1970s, she secretly saved money for 2 years without telling Dad about where the money was going. And then in the weekend just said, "Oh, by the way, I found a home and we're going to move away." And Dad was like, "But why would you move away? We're fine. We have family nearby. There's an H-E-B across the street. Why would we move?" And her response was, "My children deserve a backyard." And so he was not happy. But mom was like, determined, I'm going to break the cycle. I deserve the stuff in my home. And she moved in the course of a weekend. That decision that she made in the late 1970s has led me to stand before you today. Because what she did was she gave me an opportunity to see the world and to contribute in my public service career, and also to contribute to the organization that I now have the most incredible, amazing opportunity to now lead an organization I was born into. It's an incredibly humbling experience to do it, but that's where the journey started. And in the course of my career, as a high school student at Southside High School in the South Side, leading a movement in high school to ensure that kids had access and families had access to food. We started a Trees for Life program. So it was a way to supplement diets. So we planted fruit trees and vegetables in folks' homes in the South Side near the high school. And it was called Trees for Life. And I remember we were part of an organization called the Giraffe Project. Those who stick out their head for the common good. Of course, we were doing it because we thought it was the right thing to do, but I remember the idea of for the common good. What does that mean? In my mind, it's just doing the right thing. But there was a label to it for the common good. As I went off to college, I went off to have a career, a 20-year career in Washington, D.C. And I started off
as an intern on Capitol Hill working on congressional campaigns. I was, in 1 minute I was here on the south side of San Antonio, and the next minute I was producing congressional ads for members of Congress. I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. And then I ended up working for the Congress and helping members of Congress learn how to be members of Congress with parliamentary procedure. We rented an Amtrak train every 2 years, and all the new members of Congress, we would put them in that train at Union Station, took them down to Williamsburg, Virginia, and showed them how to be a member of Congress 101. This is the hopper box, this is the parliamentary procedure, this is how you file a bill. So it was an incredible experience to be in that. But the theme in that experience was for the common good. You're here trying to help those who are shaping public policy for the future. I got a unique experience during that time when I was invited to this luncheon and a senator was there, and I had seen a few of them, but everyone's like, you have to be at this one. You can't miss this one. I walk in and there is this fiery speech by the Lion of the Senate. You know him as, Senator Ted Kennedy, brother of President John F. Kennedy. And he talked about the need for public service and public servants, and the world's in a really bad place, and we need good people who are in it for the right reason. And then he mentioned the words that I heard back in high school. And he said, it's about the common good. And that sunk in as well. I think, yeah, it is about the common good. Now I get it. I sort of get all this, what this means. Fast forward, I got to work with 2 international organizations. The United Nations on behalf of the Secretary General. So I handled all of this White House, State Department, and all this engagement in Washington, D.C. At the Secretary General's office in Washington, and then moved on to international development at the Asian Development Bank, which is a sister organization to the World Bank, and got to see development, new energy, new highways, new housing, new water plants around the world. And at the UN, we're trying to defend the Sustainable Development Goals, trying to build sustainable cities. At the Asian Development Bank, we got to actually do it. I was in the Philippines, where we were headquartered in what were described there as slums, at a restaurant that we had funded with homeless children. The kids had no one else in their life. They just had this one restaurant where they lived, and they learned to cook, create marketing plans, business plans, and build a business and save that money for their future. And I remember sitting there and asked one of the kids, my colleagues and I were having lunch there, and we asked them, what does this restaurant mean to you? And they said, it's everything. We don't have anything else. They have no family, no parents, they're by themselves. They said, this is everything. And at that moment, I realized 2 things. One, the important work that public servants do to shape the lives of people. But at that moment, I also realized, hey man, I'm here on the other side of the world. My city back in Texas could use my help too, right? And at that moment, I realized I need to do 2 things. I need to figure out how to get to Texas, back home, and also convince my best friend who I'm married that it's a good idea to leave this incredible city we're living in Washington, D.C., to come back to San Antonio. We did. It took me 2 years to convince her, but I prevailed, and we moved back to San Antonio, and full circle moment, having this incredible career in D.C., and now coming back to this organization I was born into. And so came in, all right, seeing the world, seeing housing from every aspect from the Middle East and Southeast Asia. We got this, we can do this. I came back and I'm I get it now. I thought it was gonna be a piece of cake. We need the funding, we need the political will, we can build more housing for San Antonio. And then I ran into the local politics and how that maneuvers, and we're like, oh man, this is not gonna be easy, right? And so in the last 7 years, I've been able to see every aspect of our city and the dire need for affordable housing. Our organization, Opportunity Home, the largest affordable housing provider in San Antonio, half of our residents are children. And so I've been making an effort to tell our residents, our staff, think of our